Okay. The other thing that I asked you before was, what was your mother's condition like?
She couldn't breathe, and towards the end she couldn't even turn over. She didn't have enough breath to turn over. She didn't have enough of breath to eat. We'd give her a bite and she'd take her oxygen mask off and put it right back on. She didn't even have the breath. Even with oxygen, she didn't have enough breath to eat. And the reason I'm in the finishing department now, in the pillowcase department, is because I was transferred on account of my breathing.
Where were you working before?
Spinning room.
Oh, you were in the spinning room too. So you were in the
Yeah.
same spinning
Yeah.
room as your mama? Same
No,
room?
no.
Okay.
She was in number 5. I was in number 7. She told me she was retired then. She said, I want you to go to your overseer and tell him you want to transfer to the pillowcase department because I don't want you to end up like me. That was her words. So I went to him. He called me Sin. He said, Sin, I don't think you can get a transfer. I said, well, that ain't what I've been told. I said, a girl just got one a week ago. He said, well, I'll check into it. See, he was trying to make out like I couldn't get a transfer. But after I stood up to him, he got me a transfer. And that's why I'm in the pillowcase department. But I had 4 asthma attacks in 4 months that year and had never had asthma in all my life, and I was 42 years old. And they wrote a letter saying that I had asthma, and it didn't have nothing to do with cotton dust. And they asked me, had I ever smoked, and I said yes. And they put at the bottom of the letter, don't ever smoke again. Like, if I ever have to go to court, they'll use that. And I was dumb enough to sign it. But I'll get my letter out and let you see it.
Now, what was it that they said to your grandmother, your mother, the lawyer? What was it that the lawyer said to your mother in Raleigh? Was it?
In Raleigh. We went to Raleigh. I don't know what kind of a health board that was or what it was, Workman's Compensation Board or something. And anyway, the Cannon Mill lawyers was there. And she had to go in there with her oxygen. We pushed her in and rolled her oxygen with her. It was hooked up to her nose, and you could hear her breathing all over the building. And the Cannon Mill lawyers stood up and said, we know that without a doubt there's something wrong with Miss Hendricks, but the statute of limitations is run out, and therefore we don't have to pay.
What did your mother do?
She didn't do nothing. She just took it with the flow. We went back home. And she spent out the rest of her days. You know.
And you said, what was it that she said? You said she wasn't trying to make money.
No, she didn't want to make a pile of money. She just wanted her bills paid.
None of her medical bills were ever paid?
No.
How did she pay for all of that?
She paid what Medicare didn't pay.
And how much of a pension did she get?
$13 a month from the company.
Well, it doesn't have to be like that ever again. Would you say to your fellow employees, don't be silly? Do you know that there are people right now that have emphysema in quotes?
Yeah. I know there's people working now that's having breathing problems. I'm having them myself. But since I got my transfer, it's helped my breathing a lot. But now when I get a cold, I wheeze real bad, and I have to go to the doctor and take medicine. But I haven't been in the hospital since they gave me my transfer. And my doctor helped me get the transfer. And I went to they'd send me to the mill doctor every time I had an asthma attack. And he finally wrote on some kind of a paper he sent back to him that I needed to be transferred. That's how I got it. Had 4 asthma attacks. He said anybody that's had 4 asthma attacks in 4 months needs to be transferred out of the cotton dust. And that's how I got it.
Otherwise, you'd still be spinning?
or be dead one.
And how do you think the union could change that and all of this?
I don't know. I know they could stand up for people. They could talk for people.
Health benefits.
Huh?
Health benefits.
Health benefits, insurance. Our insurance would be better. And they would go to workman's comp for us too. Like my mother, she was afraid to go to the company or get a lawyer or anything to help her. But we wouldn't have to be afraid. We'd have the union behind us. And people think they can go to the labor board about anything, get help, but they can't if they hadn't got a union behind them, because the labor board told me and my husband that. You can go to the labor board, but if you don't have a union behind you, they don't usually do anything for you.
Because they need the pressure.
Uh-huh.
Listen, if
I've been working for Fieldcrest Cannon for 21 years. When I started, it was Cannon Mill. Then we changed to Murdoch, but he didn't change the name of the mill. And Murdoch sold it to Fieldcrest Cannon. And over the years, we've had many changes. It keeps getting worse and worse. They keep stretching out and cutting pay. And when Murdoch had it, we tried to get the union in. We wanted it then. But some people got scared and that was going to vote for it and didn't. But the main reason I want the union in is because of better benefits, fair treatment. I want to be treated fair, and I want to see everybody else treated fair, because they do show partiality. And every time the production hands get a raise, their production's raised, and that makes me madder than anything. And it's just people are not treated equal.
Is there a specific story that you could point to in your own experience, or something that you've seen or witnessed in your department that you could say firsthand?
Well, here's a good one. I don't like for them to know that it made me mad, but it did. They put me in office timekeeping. I knew how to do all the cards and everything. They decided they didn't want me in there anymore, so they took me out. The overseer called me in his office and talked to me about it. He said, it's not anything you done. He said, you done a good job for us. He said, we just don't need but one timekeeper. So they put me back on the floor working. And he told me, he said, if we ever need a fill-in, it will be you. I said, fine, that's fine with me. So he put me out. They put me out back on the floor working. And then they sent timekeepers to take a test. And if you passed the test, you could be a timekeeper. I was not even offered to take the test. I didn't even know anything about it until everybody had took the test and they picked out who they wanted. Now that thing made me madder than anything. That's the main thing. And even if I'd have worked in the office, I'd still been for the union. I would. That's not why. I wanted it in '85 before they put me in the office. But after that, that was the cherry on the icing. That really upset me. Because he just out and out lied to me. He said, if we ever need a fill-in, it will be you. And I ain't filled in yet. Plus, they put me on the computer job. They trained me to run the computer. Well, we changed supervisors. Well, the next supervisor, wanted her own person to be in a computer. They took me out. I was ready to be qualified. They took me out, and she put the one she wanted in there to training. Well, I never did get qualified. Now, whenever they need somebody, they want me to do it. And that's not fair. I should be qualified if I'm going to be doing the job. That's two good jobs they've done me like that over.
Do they pay you less than they would if you were qualified?
No, they pay me for the job when I run it. But that's what I mean, fair treatment. There's nothing fair about either two of those situations. I should either be a timekeeper or be running a computer, or at least be qualified on my record.
Why aren't you?
I don't know. See, we switched supervisors in midstream, and the new supervisor took the one she wanted and put me out.
1 second.
You use. Well, I don't think they could do people like that. Like if they put you on a job and promised you the job, I think they would have to live up to their promise. If the union came in, if they didn't, you can file a grievance, and the shop steward and grievance committee would go to them about it. That's what I think.
Before you talked about the 12 hours and being frightened at the 12 hours. Do you want to talk about that?
And I don't want to work 12 hours. I'm not able. I'm just barely able to make 8, and I sure couldn't make 12. And the older people that's doing it now, I don't see how they make it. And I've been for the union all my life. I don't really know why, except seeing on things on TV that'll show you that the people up north have a better lifestyle than we do. And about everybody belongs to a union up north. And plus, I found out today that my great uncle was a union organizer in the 30s, and I didn't know that. And I guess it was born and bred in me. But all my people's not for the union, but they should be. They just don't understand.
Now, how do you deal with the all you people aren't for the union and you are? How do you deal with the pressure they might put on you? Or
when they tell me something, it goes in one ear and out the other. I don't even think about it no more, because my mind's made up, and they couldn't change my mind. They'd have to pay me what they paying Ron Ely before I'd change my mind. $1.25 million. Because I've seen all my people working in textile mills all my life and struggling. They struggle to make it, still struggling, and I think we need help. You can talk to your supervisor till you turn blue. They'll say, I'll get back with you, and you never hear any more about it. And they're hoping you don't mention it again. I guess that's about it.
have you seen an experience? Have you seen anything? Have you seen?
Okay, we had this lady, Hazel Honeycutt.
She mention her name? You feel okay about that?
Yeah, she wouldn't care. She was fired. The job she was on, she had to get supplies for fixers and thread and labels and piping and stuff like that for different ones. And the job was too much for her anyway, and plus she had to answer the phone. And she was in the smoker smoking and missed some phone calls, and they fired her because she missed the phone calls. And then, when the next lady they gave the job to, they got them an answering machine. And that really burnt me up. And this lady was not old enough to retire, but too old to get another job.
Hazel?
And that really burnt me up.
No. What about the pension and all? I mean, can you talk about your future? I mean, can you talk about your fears about the future and supporting yourself and how you think this might change things?
Yeah, if we get a union, we would probably get a better pension check when we retire, plus our Social Security. My aunt does. She lives in Winston, and she worked for AT&T, and she belonged to the CWA, and she gets a retirement check from AT&T. She gets her Social Security, plus her medical bills are paid. And my mother got $13 a month from the mill for retirement. And she used to buy her bread with it. That's what she used it for.
Huh. You might have got $13 a week?
Yeah,
And
a
that's
month. A
A
month.
month.
And when she died, her survivors was supposed to get it. And Murdoch sold the pension plan to Parkdale Mills. And we've been trying to get that $13 ever since, and we can't get it. That's the truth. I got letters in there to prove it. And every time we go to them with the letters, they say that Fieldcrest Cannon is supposed to pay it. Fieldcrest Cannon says Parkdale's supposed to pay it, so my husband was in the process of getting a lawyer whenever he died. We was going to see about it because that's went back now since Mama died in '84. That's been 7 years. But he died, and so I hadn't even tried to pursue it since. I feel like they might need that $13 more than I do.
Who's they?
The company, or whoever got the pension. See, Murdoch sold the pension. He sold the pensions. That's why their pension's messed up now. He sold it to somebody, and the place went bankrupt. You've heard about it on the news. But we're not. The reason we wanted the union back in, the pensions, that wasn't the main cause for people to call them. It's this job stretch out and pay cuts, and the 12-hour shift.
Have you been stretched out on? No.
I just had my job cut out. I had a good job, and they cut it out. And I had to I started out on a folding job when they cut my other job out. And production's so high. I could make production, but it was a struggle. So this job I'm on came open, and I took it, and it's too hard for me at my age. But I can do it. I can manage it, but it's hard. A 16-year-old should be doing it. It just didn't sink in, or it sunk in my subconscious, and I, forgot about
Do
it.
you think your family would mention about your uncle's union activity if they were they would mention it, or do you think they'd keep it secret?
I think Aunt Pauline would.
But why has it been a secret up until now?
No, I guess nobody just didn't think about telling me. I don't know.
What about when you were so involved in '85? They didn't tell you?
Mm-mm.
Or '74?
Well, I wasn't that involved in '74. I voted for it, but I didn't come out, I was like some of these other people. I was more afraid then. I was for it. I voted for it, but I didn't come out and let people know. But I did in '85.
It might be an interesting...
People's rights is the black people. How they had to stand up for their rights and how they had a struggle. Now that impressed me. When I was growing up. See, when I was going to school, blacks couldn't go to school with us. But they had a struggle to get where they are. Now that impressed me. And made me realize that you can stand up for your rights and there's nothing nobody can do to you. That impressed me a lot.
I think that has a lot to do with what's going on right now.
Yeah. And when I see a black person at work that's against the union, I can't figure it out. Willie can't either. I thought this one girl was a company, what do you call them? Company observer. I was a union observer, and she was a black girl. And I looked at her and I thought, girl, the way your people's had to struggle, and you gonna stand up for the company? But I didn't say it to her, I was thinking it. We got some blacks down there that's strictly against it. But most of them are wanting to be, I call them wannabes. And they think if they stay on the company's side, they'll be rewarded.
What do you think?
They won't. They even wrote in one of the letters let me show you. Oh, I got it in that you will not be rewarded. They told them plain out. They passed out these letters here and these cards. Told us to send these cards to the union and to the labor board and tell them we wanted our green card back. And down here at the bottom, I'll let you read it all, but at least let me read this to you. We are simply advising you of your legal right. No one will receive any special reward for canceling their card, and no one will suffer any reprisal if they elect not to cancel their card. Read that. You can't get over all this, can you?
Wow. Have a lot of people done this?
I don't think so. I meant to ask Hattie if she knowed of anybody doing it.
Did they all see these at the office?
They gave them to all of us. And I kept mine for a souvenir.
Right.
And plus, I kept it for these addresses. You never know when you want to write them. That's why I kept mine.
They didn't know they were helping out your phone book.
And my best friend throwed hers away. I said, Nell, I kept mine for an address. She said, well, let me go get mine back. I might need it. And she went and got hers out of the trash can. That's a good idea. They just gave us their address so we can call them. And a lot of them left there. We got tables, and a lot of them left theirs laying on the table. We got union papers and company papers laying on the tables in the mill.
What were the movies like that they showed you? They only showed you one movie so far?
They showed us people like me and Brenda trying to get people to join the union, only they made us look crummy.
Was it like a movie? Did they have people acting?
It's a guy, yeah. And they had this guy was a narrator talking about the union and strikes and everything. And they showed a strike, and it was truck drivers, because my fixer told me he seen something in the background that he knew it was truck drivers. They was throwing bombs and, you know, these little hand bombs and
smoke bombs,
fighting and stuff, and they want us to think we'll be doing that.
And they showed people organizing like you and Brett. What were those people like?
They were clean-looking people, but they were more aggressive than me and Brenda. Like they act like they're trying to make them sign a card. And I don't do that. I talk to them and try to explain to them how the union will help them and stuff, but I don't try to make them. Because I wouldn't want them to push their beliefs on me. But
more than who knows?
My people.
What do you think your people know about your uncle?
I don't know. That's all she told me.
Well, that's all she told you.
See, she went to the meetings with him in High Point, and she was a little girl, and like I told y'all, she could remember with boycott, and she didn't know what that meant, but that word stands out in her mind. She knows what it means now, but she didn't then. See, that was, if she was 9 years old, that was 56 years ago. So that would be 1934.
That's when this big strike happened.
Well,
and he came here to organize. That's what she said.
And stayed with my grandpa for 2 weeks.
But yeah.
And he had a gun, and Grandpa was afraid of the gun because of the kids. He had 6 kids.
Right.
And so Uncle Red stayed with him 2 weeks, and he knew he was afraid, so he moved out and started staying with the union people, and they had to sleep on cots in Army cots. And she told me where they stayed at was on Sycamore Street in Kannapolis. And the union stores I was telling y'all about was right down below my grandpa's house.
Underneath?
No, down the street. And Daddy says that's why they called the union stores. Aunt Pauline said she didn't remember. But she said if Daddy told me that, it was true, because Daddy was older than her, and he'd remember more. We need to go up and see him. He could probably tell me more about Uncle Red than her.
And now, do you think that there are people that still live in the community that might remember your grandpa?
I don't know.
There should be, right?
Well, the people that live close to him, a lot of them are dead.
Not your grandpa, your uncle.
My Uncle Red.
I mean, if he was a lead organizer, then any people that were
It
around
looks
here
like
that got
they
him,
would remember, don't it? But I don't know who it would be.
well, we have to look for some retirees and see if any of them.
Well, this lady you going to see now is 80. Ask her if she remembers.
Okay, now his name
His name was Kelly Hendricks, but they called him Red.
Okay.
I think it was because he was redheaded, but he did go to Russia. But I think he went to Russia after the Union thing. He stayed over there, I think he stayed 7 years. That's what my daddy says.
And do you remember when he came back?
I didn't even remember when he went.
But,
I probably wasn't even born yet.
but you knew him later on.
Yeah. And like I say, all I can remember, he had sat squatted down. He could sit squatted down for hours on end. Looks like his legs would have went to sleep.
And do you know retired people that live in the community? No?
Most of the people I know is either dead or like Ruby, just in their 60s. My mother-in-law was 75. She lives on the next street.
Did she grow up here?
Mm-hmm.
This is her first husband's wife?
My second husband's.
Did she work in the mill too?
Yeah.
She,
I could ask her, but she's not but 75, so I don't know if she'd be old enough.
well,
If my daddy's 69, he'll be 70 in November, and she's 75, so she would have been about 15, wouldn't she? She might remember. I could call her and see.
yeah, I'll tell you, you might want to call her, say hi, hey, how you doing, chat it up a little bit, and then sort of say,
She likes to talk about the Union too.
She does? Oh.
She wants us to get it.
Really? Do you want to go say hello to her now?
We can. Let me call her and see if she's... It was tough then. That's why Uncle Red carried a gun. That's what I think. I don't think he wanted to kill people. I think it was so tough back then organizing. Because I've read books about unions and what a struggle they had. They really had a struggle. And all they wanted was to help the people. But the people here think they want union dues. They just want money. But the company has planted that seed in their mind, and that it's hard to get it out. See, people around here make such low wages till you can hit them in the pocketbook and make them think. They even give out checks, and they have showed checks and say, this is what your check will look like when you pay union dues. But it won't be right. It'll be a fake or phony.
Have people in the plant talked about strike?
Yeah.
What do they say?
That's why my sister don't want it. She thinks we'll strike. And she hadn't got to work but 3 or 4 weeks since the first of the year. Because she hadn't had any work.
Because they're in short time?
But still, she don't want to go on strike to get more benefits. I would go on strike for more benefits. But the people don't seem to want to. I would try to pull with the, I'd try to pull with the crowd. We got to pull together. If the majority didn't want to strike, we wouldn't.
Well, they've found that there's other ways to do it other than striking, but it is a form of pressure.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that's the first thing that comes up, huh?
But when we get time, I'll take you over and show you where my grandpa lived and where my daddy was raised, and show you the mill. It's right behind his house. He walked to work. And she told me where he crossed the line at, the picket line. Aunt Pauline did. She might go with us and show us. And
how do you feel about him crossing that line?
I wish he'd have been for the Union, but I admire him too, because it took guts for him to cross the line. Aunt Pauline said he was abused because he wouldn't strike, which he should. I'm saying he should have went ahead and went on strike, but he felt like he had to feed his kids and he was afraid that they'd go hungry. And it takes guts to cross a picket line. I mean, I've seen it on TV, truck drivers. It takes guts. But I wish he'd have been for the union.
Do you think it took more guts to go on to join the union then than it did to cross the picket line?
Back then it took, I don't know. Back then things were so hard, I would have been afraid to cross the picket line myself. I would have been more afraid to do that than go on strike.
But what if your home? What if they threatened you with eviction? What if those? I mean, did they come? As you were growing up, did the company have a different relationship to the people than they do now?
Well, the people that had company houses, the company, like if you was out of work a lot, if I was out of work a lot, I'd be threatened with getting paid up. They were threatened with being kicked out of their house. And people can say Charlie Cannon, he was better to us than these new people. But he wasn't that good to them. If you can threaten somebody with kicking them out of their house if they don't come. My grandpa was afraid, I can't think of no examples, but he was afraid to do anything that the neighbors might report him to the mill office that he'd get kicked out of his house. He couldn't live his own life because he lived in a mill house. They owned him. And it was cheap rent, granted, but they owned him, lock, stock, and barrel. My mother was the same way. She got a mill house in Concord after she got older. She couldn't get one when we was kids. And she got older and she got one. She was afraid everything that you done. The neighbors might call the company. The neighbors might call the mill office. And it wouldn't be nothing bad, just you couldn't make no noise, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. And my daddy would get drunk and go see Grandpa, and Grandpa would be afraid that the neighbors would turn him in on account of that. Just things like that.
Now this Grandpa, his father. Because Grandpa lived in a mill house, but your father didn't.
Grandpa lived in it 37 years, I think it was.
So if your grandpa would have been living in it in 1934?
I think he was, because he walked from there to work.
And this was his brother,
Uncle Red, yeah.
Younger brother.
Uncle Red was sort of like the rebel of the family. But he had sense enough to know when something would help you. And he tried to talk Grandpa into it, but he couldn't.
It would be great to talk to your grandfather. It would be great. I wonder if there's any way is your uncle completely in charge of him?
Yeah. If he didn't want us to come in over there, he wouldn't let us.
All right. Well, you know
He's
what?
a funny kind of person. You'd have to know him.
You know what I suggest?
He can be hateful.
Really?
And I wouldn't want your feelings hurt.
Well, my feelings can't be too hurt.
What all? Let's see if I've got one of them papers in here. You gotta go.
I gotta call that gentleman.
Well,
I've had such a good time. How about you?
Yeah. We can talk again.
Okay.
We're gonna have plenty of time.
Okay. Well, I know you.
How long are you gonna be here?
Well,
Here's my old copy of that. See where they marked through it in yellow, where they had.
This is right
This
after.
is right
85?
after.
What? Could you tell me a little bit about your mom and her job?
My mama was a spinner for 35 years for Fieldcrest Cannon. It was Cannon when she worked there. And she got brown lung and her breathing got worse and worse as she gradually went along. She finally got to where she couldn't make a round around her job without giving out of breath. So she went to the doctor.
The company doctor?
I can't remember if she went to him or not, but she went to the doctor and they told her she had emphysema.
Is that what they tell everybody?
But see, these doctors in this town, when Cannon owned the mill, the doctors and everybody was bought off. I don't know about actually paying them money, but anything for the company, they'd do it. So they told her she had emphysema. Well, then she started going to this other doctor, and he told her she had pulmonary fibrosis. That means your blood don't carry oxygen, is what they told her. But we think she had brown lung because she worked in that spinning room 35 years. And when she had to retire, she had to sign up for disability twice before she got it. And she finally got retired on disability, and my husband tried to get her to see a lawyer and see about getting workman's compensation from Cannon Mill. And she wouldn't do it. She said, they didn't ask me to come to work here. I asked them for the job. And she was living in a company house then. And I think that was what she was afraid of. She might get thrown out. But finally, when her disease got so bad, she was on oxygen about 24 hours a day. My husband got her an appointment in Raleigh. I forget who we went. We went to some kind of board in Raleigh about her brown lung. And the Cannon Mill lawyers came, and they said you could hear her breathing all over the place. And the Cannon Mill lawyers said there was no doubt in their mind that there was something wrong with her breathing. But the statute of limitations had run out, so she didn't get nothing. And the lawyer she had here didn't tell her that there was a statute of limitations. He didn't tell her. So he must have been in with them too. We finally got Jim Lohr was from High Point, I think. That was the last lawyer he had, and he's the one who went to Raleigh with her. But
was he part of the Brown Lung Association? Those lawyers
I
for
think
the Brown
so.
Lung Association?
Yeah. He used to put ads in the paper for people that had breathing problems to see him, and he would help them. He tried to help her, but the statute of limitations had run out.
So the company was never responsible.
But it really boiled down to it was her fault for not going when it first happened. If she had went on and got her a lawyer as soon as she had to retire, she would have probably.
But the reason behind your mother not going was why?
She lived in a company house, and I think she was afraid of being put out. I really do.
And how is that like or different? People being afraid to join the union? Is it similar?
Well, see, now the company houses, you either have to buy them or you pay higher rent. Most of the people that's renting, though, is older people, real old people.
But do you think that same fear that your mother had is similar to some of the fear that the people have now?
Well, the only thing they're afraid of now is the mill closing down, and the union dues and the strike. And the union dues are only $3.92 a week, but they don't believe that. The company got this rumor going that it was $200 a month. And they just caught on. And that some people, it'll be hard to convince them that it's not $200 a month. And then the company said we didn't make no more than, the Fieldcrest unionized plants didn't make no more than us. Well, if they don't, how do they pay $200 a month?
If there had been a union in the mill, do you think your mother would have been sick to begin? Do you think that maybe that would have changed the conditions in some way in the mill so she wouldn't have gotten so sick?
I don't know. Because, see, she started to work she was born in 1918. She started to work when she was 17 or 18. Well, she learned to spin, like I said, when she was a little girl. We'll get Aunt Virginia to tell us the story about that. And even back then, it was hard. The lint and all, no air conditioning, nothing. See, when Ralph Nader came here, I don't know what made him come here, but he helped us a lot. He helped the people in the mill a lot. He made them be more aware of safety and made them get rid of them spinning frames. You'd have to get, when you walked in there, it looked like it was snowing all the time.
Is that where your mama worked?
Didn't have no respirators, didn't have nothing. Ralph Nader changed all that. And I admire him to this day. I would like to meet him. I would. And he made them. A lot of people got blackballed from Cannon Mill. I don't know why, but I've heard that story before Ralph Nader came. He made them destroy all them old records and start all over. And people that was blackballed could get a job. Ralph Nader done a lot to help us. I wished he'd come and make a speech to the people and tell them they need a union.
Because people trust Ralph Nader. That might be a good
They
idea.
should.
Why don't you tell Bruce? You just tell Mark that.
Because Ralph Nader, he has done a lot of
If he
good for
wrote
a
an
lot of
article,
people.
if he wrote a letter and they put it in that newspaper to all the employees, do you think?
They might help.
I don't know if
Maybe everybody don't admire him like I do, but I do.
No,
And I don't know how the rest of the people feel about him. Some of them might not even remember him, but I do.
To end your story, I'm just thinking, let's just think for the end of your story, if there had been a union, how would that have at least changed your mother's health care towards the end? I mean, how would have that been different? Maybe they couldn't have changed the conditions from way back, but...
Well, maybe she would have had better medical attention. Maybe she could have afforded better medical attention. Maybe.
You think maybe the doctors would never have told her that it was emphysema?
Right. I don't think they would. They wouldn't. They would have told the truth about what was wrong with her. And she would pin them down and point blank ask them, did she have brown lung?
She did that?
And they would beat around the bush.
So your mama knew what brown lung was?
Mama knew she had it. She knew she had it. But they just wouldn't put it in writing.
Do you have a picture of your mother?
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of you and your mother?
I don't think I got one.
Do you have a picture of your mother when she was sick?
Yeah.
Let's